What's up, everybody? It's Josh coming at you from Nerd Avengers Tower, and I want to talk about Morbius, Sony, and Spider-Man, mostly Tobey Maguire or Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. There's a lot of craziness going on right now because of the Morbius movie being a big old stinky turd of a film that really upset a lot of fans, and this sort of lingering idea that Tobey or Andrew will be announced as the Spider-Man for the Venomverse and come back to do Sony movies, and why all of this is now in flux just because of how badly Morbius has been received by fans. Now, by now, you've probably heard all of the memes and jokes about Morbius and how poorly it's being received by the majority of the fan base out there. Currently sits at a 17% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is, if you didn't know, real bad. It's got a really whack cinema score, and despite having a kind of decent audience score on Rotten Tomatoes, most of the buzz online about Morbius is bad. This is sort of showcased in the very poor word of mouth that is going out there for the film, and the box office continuing to diminish. We're going into the second weekend this weekend, and most folks think that this is going to be a huge bomb of a weekend and solidify the Morbius movie itself as being a bomb. A lot of projections have it falling more than 60%, coming in at like $15 to $10 million, which would set the movie up to be a pretty disastrous total box office take. And I know there's a contingent of people out there that are saying Morbius does not deserve the hate that it is getting. And at face value, the movie is not as bad as people are saying it. By the way, I still haven't seen this movie, and I don't really know that I plan to. So I can't really speak to how good the movie is as a movie, but I can definitely explain where all of this hate is coming from, why I personally think a lot of it's actually justified, and why it flies in the face of all of the goodwill created by Spider-Man No Way Home and the potential of Sony and Marvel working together in the future. The very first teaser trailer for Morbius had Michael Keaton as Vulture, and it had a shot of a Spider-Man on the wall painted in graffiti, Morbius walking past it, and that immediately created all of this different buzz about what was going on with the Morbius film. And neither the Michael Keaton Vulture character or that Spider-Man scene that was on the wall or a mention of Spider-Man at all is in the Morbius movie. All of it was cut out, and ultimately Michael Keaton did come in for a ton of reshoots and shoot 2 post-credit scenes that happen after the Morbius film, which show him coming into our universe using the same visual effects that the Doctor Strange spell from No Way Home had at the very end of that movie, and then shows Vulture showing up to Morbius saying he doesn't know how he got into this universe, something to do with Spider-Man, I guess, and by the way, Morbius, we should team up. The memes for this have been hilarious. My favorite one is the one with Oscar Isaac's Poe Dameron saying something to do with Spider-Man, I guess. It is literally that same energy of somehow Palpatine returned. Just a total ass grab. We don't really need to explain it. Here's what it is. And to add to this, the director of Morbius, bless his heart, and honestly, probably not his job. He's just trying to walk the company line, but he's been saying some absolutely absurd stuff to explain all of this, claiming that the multiversal idea came from Sony, not Marvel, and yet he still wanted it to visually look like the idea that Marvel had with the spell at the end of No Way Home. It's really crazy. He changes the parameters of the spell. Like, it technically makes zero sense that that spell would put Vulture into the world that Morbius is in. And in addition to that, the director has explained that the original version was even more confusing. Before the Doctor Strange spell in No Way Home, Sony was going to make it even more convoluted and hard to grasp how the Vulture and Morbius were all existing in the same universe. And the reason this is so upsetting to Marvel fans, to Spider-Man fans, is because the Sony movies, mainly Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and now Morbius, have all been of a much lower quality than what you get in the MCU. And all of the Tom Holland Spider-Man movies, which were produced by Kevin Feige, ended up being super cool, including No Way Home, which just presented ultimate fan service, like literally something that we've never even imagined was possible on the screen, bringing all of these different Spider-Man together. And in the wake of that film coming out and blowing up, there was all this talk of Andrew Garfield coming in as Spider-Man for the Sony universe, Tobey Maguire being interested and excited to do more stuff. And that is why the stink pile that is Morbius and the weird, convoluted cutting and editing and just less quality, less well thought out, goobly glob mess is just not doing it for fans. And now I want to read a couple of answers that Sam Raimi just gave when talking to Fandango about Multiverse of Madness, but he's actually specifically asked about working with Tobey Maguire again, working with Marvel again, and coming back to do Spider-Man or Marvel movies. And I think his answer's really telling. So Fandango asks, as we wrap up, you know, Tobey Maguire is back in that Spider-Man suit and it looks good on him. What are the chances that we see you two team back up for more Spider-Man movies, or has that ship sailed? And Sam Raimi says, I've come to realize after making Doctor Strange that anything is possible. Really anything in the Marvel universe. Any team-ups. I love Tobey. I love Kirsten Dunst. I think all things are possible. I don't really have a story or a plan. I don't know if Marvel would be interested in that right now. I don't know what their thoughts are about that. I haven't really pursued that, but it sounds beautiful. Even if it wasn't a Spider-Man movie, I'd love to work with Tobey again in a different role. And then Fandango follows up by saying, this was your first experience with the MCU. If they asked you to return and continue to play in this world for a little while, is that something you'd be interested in? And he answers, absolutely. It's like the world's best toy box, and to be able to play at Marvel, I'd love to come back and tell another tale, especially with the great management they've got there. So guys, I don't think it's an accident that he's asked about coming back to do more Tobey Maguire Spider-Man stuff, and he literally says, I love working with Marvel, haven't really talked to them about that. I would love to work with Tobey, even if it wasn't with Spider-Man. And then when asked about working with the MCU, he says he'd absolutely return, and it has to do with their management. I mean, I feel like he's, without throwing a lot of shade over at Sony, I feel like he's throwing some serious shade over at Sony. And I'm reminded of the interview that was done, the first interview with Tobey, with Tom, and with Andrew. And when they were asked about being approached for this project, they all talked about the passion that Amy Pascal and Kevin Feige brought to the project, and how it was more than just a paycheck or fan service, but that they actually felt the fan in those two producers and in the team behind them that made them actually want to do it. And both of them said they'd be down to return, but it would have to be as meaningful as that. And that's really what this all comes down to, because frankly, the vision, care, and love that is given to these characters by Kevin Feige and by Amy Pascal when, you know, she worked on those movies with him, but let's just call a spade a spade. It's really more to do with Kevin Feige and the MCU. That passion is what has made the Marvel brand what it is. It goes back to that 2019 time period where Sony and Marvel were having that small falling out, and Tom Rothman and Avi Arad tried to take Tom Holland's Spider-Man back. And even though they were completely within their rights to do that, the internet turned on them and thought of them as villains because they loved so much what Kevin Feige had done with the Tom Holland and with the Spider-Man character. And I think all of us fans, we want Tobey to come back. We want Andrew to come back, but we don't want another cookie cutter, let's just make a Morbius film because we can kind of a situation. We want the love and the care that Marvel Studios brings to these projects. And I don't know if the fans can make enough noise, or if the box office for Morbius will be low enough to make them want to change their ways, but my God, we've got to try to let them know they need to work with Marvel if they want to continue riding this train and keeping fans really engaged. And I personally don't want Tobey or Andrew to come back if it's just going to be Sony in control. And let me know in the comment section if you agree with that. But one last point here, I do want to sort of be fair. in the sense that Morbius is a unique movie that was supposed to come out a long time ago, and because of the pandy and all of these different things, there were a lot of different changes that were made, and even Spider-Man No Way Home changed when in the Marvel canon it was going to take place. It was originally going to come out after Multiverse of Madness, so they've done a lot of shifting with that movie as well, and maybe Morbius is just the victim of all of that. But regardless, the final product is what it is. That's what Sony put out, and they delayed the movie so much you think they could have fixed it and made it much better if they truly cared about it. And I think that's where fans are at. And yes, this is a weird time where fans are super ragey and triggered by all sorts of things, and their opinion can become a sort of swarming zeitgeist that's really feels toxic and weird. And I'm sure studios are like, what the hell's going on here? But all of that doesn't matter. It just is what it is. Fans have that kind of power. They have that voice right now, and Marvel is thriving within that environment. I would just work with Marvel on your future Sony Spider-Man stuff. I think that's the solution, and I think fans would galvanize behind that. But again, maybe Morbius is just a special case. The Craven movie is filming soon. Maybe that'll be much better. If you like this video, smash a like on it. It does really help us out. And as I always say, I hope you are having an awesome and a nerdy day, and I'll see you in the next video.